What would it be like if gym leaders were more like mentors or coaches for their type specialties? This is just one of the many questions I had to address in an older video where I suggested an alternative method of sparring with gym leaders. I strongly recommend checking out that video to get context about the concept and intent. Otherwise, this video will make way less sense to you. Long story short, the anime and other forms of Pokemon media depict gym leaders in a light that I really appreciate. They're clearly strong trainers and often valuable members of the community. The gym challenge is like a big internship, and the individual gyms are small projects along the way that give practical experience. The gym leaders are obviously handicapping themselves to prioritize teaching you, the new trainer, about their type. I thought it would be cool to add that to the gym challenge in video games. Raihan's Battle tried to do this in Sword and Shield, and I appreciate what they tried. Scarlet and Violet does this even better by having an entire academy dedicated to teaching you as much as they can about Pokemon. Some of the teachers are even alumni or retired gym leaders. Showcasing some battle mechanics or effects during a gym battle could potentially better bridge that gap between the story mode and competitive play. Reception on that video was good, and people liked the idea, so I made 2 follow-up scripts. Those follow-up scripts, along with a few others, have been trapped in Google Drive jail since like 2023, so keep in mind that recently released games like Pokemon Legends ZA, Pokopia, and Pokemon Champions haven't been factored into some of these videos. Today we will expand on the initial concept and create sample teams for a water-type gym. These teams aren't being built for any specific game or region in particular, just a few examples that they can use at different stages of the game following the usual 8-gym story. Hopefully by doing this with the water gym, you'll get a better feel of what I was describing in the last video. Before we begin, I'm setting a few ground rules and goals for the teams I am making. I want to keep this video a short and to the point proof of concept rather than getting into the weeds about hyper-specific situations. First rule. Gym leaders cannot have legendary Pokemon, mythical Pokemon, or one-of-a-kind Pokemon. Things like Lugia, Kyogre, Latios, Mew, and Genesect are not allowed on gym teams. Special Pokemon like Silvally that are limited for lore reasons despite not being legendary in the traditional sense are also not allowed. The gym leaders are mentors that you fight during the normal campaign of a Pokemon game. They shouldn't have access to Pokemon that blatantly break the lore and/or balance of the games. Even if they are relatively unviable special Pokemon like Articuno, Fione, and Wo-Chien, they're still not allowed. We want a roster of normie Pokemon so that the teams are attainable for the region they are in. Second rule. Gym leader Pokemon must all match the specialty type. So for this water gym, all Pokemon must have water as their primary or secondary typing. The point of gym leaders is to specialize in a type and demonstrate how to capitalize on the type's strengths and minimize their weaknesses. The limitation is the point and half the fun. I'm aware that things like terrestrialization and mega evolution could create situations where you break the monotype rule, but we're not factoring that in. Generational gimmicks are not guaranteed to come back, and Pokemon games have done a fine job showing off how to use the newest generational gimmick. It's not relevant to the core goal. Third rule, exposure and building fundamentals is the priority. Not raw difficulty for difficulty's sake, nor acting like expecting someone to think for 2 seconds is elitist. Like with any skill, art, or hobby, you need to get the reps in, and they need to be meaningful reps. Let's use playing the piano as an example. A pianist intending to get better shouldn't take an easy shortcut. For example, it would be foolish spending years only learning the right hand for each piece before moving on, because that would be selecting comfort and the illusion of progress at the expense of meaningful improvement. At the same time, a pianist should not add meaningless difficulty to their practice routine. For example, some pianists try to learn pieces like they're playing a roguelike. They play until they make a mistake, then, if they do, they start the piece from the beginning. Rather than drilling down on the part they are bad at, they spend proportionally more time refining what they are already good at. So it's difficult, but ultimately extremely meaningless and a hindrance to actual skill. I want to expose the player to more mechanics and game concepts than the gym leaders currently do. That is one of the top priorities. By virtue of making the gym leaders use more mechanics, the gyms will be more difficult for casual players that can't read and/or have poor attention spans. So journalists and terminally online people will have a worse experience, but the kids will be fine. Since the purpose is to teach casual players, it's going to be balanced around casual players learning about elements of competitive play, not competitive players trying to play VGC from the moment they get their starter. Don't worry about optimal competitive sets or the actual competitive viability for the gym leaders' teams. As long as the trainers learn the mechanics and are given an example of the concepts we're trying to better teach them, then our goal is complete. For example, if the goal is to demonstrate that rain is great for water types and can enable abilities, a Swift Swim Ludicolo can demonstrate the concept just fine in a gym leader's team. We don't need to split hairs to specifically have an adamant 31 attack IV Swift Swim Mega Swampert because it's optimal. That's excessive. I get it. A lot of people want harder games, but today's topic is primarily casual education. Besides, Pokemon AI isn't very strong to begin with, and I don't want to get into the conversation of improving Pokemon AI. My point is to save the harder stuff for post-game, mods, or Pokemon content. The final rule, though this one is more of a recommendation than a hard rule, I'm going to try to avoid using hidden abilities or items until it's a point in the game where they'd realistically be available. It's a little hard to truly police this rule because it's become easier to access hidden abilities as time has passed. Things like DexNav in Generation 6, SOS Battles in Generation 7, and the raids in Generation 8 and 9 can technically grant players very fast access to hidden abilities. We are going to be aware, show restraint, and use professional judgment as usual. For example, adding a Blaziken to a Fire Gym Leader's team is acceptable because it demonstrates how to use dual typings to neutralize Fire's rock weakness and to cover opposing rock types. Making it specifically Swords Dance and Speed Boost Blaziken for a mid-game battle is difficult for the sake of sweatiness, rather than a Fire-specific lesson. Let's finally get to the gym. Water is a powerful type with a huge pool of Pokemon to choose from, pun not intended. Defensively, the water type is weak to grass and electric moves, but resists water, ice, steel, and fire. When building an all-water team, we can strategically use dual types to cover those weaknesses. Offensively, water is super effective on fire, rock, and ground types, but resisted by water, grass, and dragon types. Coverage moves will be used to circumvent resistances. The water-type gym's gimmick is perpetual rainfall. During the course of the whole battle, it will be raining and the rain will not expire. Originally, I said that trying to set other weather with moves or abilities will fail in the gym, but now I'd prefer rain to just be the default weather in the gym. I want to reward players that try to disrupt the gym's weather. The weather will switch back to rain after the player's weather runs its course. Rain is a weather that helps trigger plenty of useful effects for moves, abilities, and types. We will go through each effect and how it can be useful. Rain boosts the power of water-type moves by 50%. This boost stacks with the same type attack bonus that Pokemon receive from using a move that matches their own base typing. Water types will be doing a lot of damage in this gym with rain-boosted stab moves, enough to seriously damage Pokemon that resist water. Next, rain reduces the damage of fire-type moves by 50%. Water types usually resist fire moves unless they have a secondary typing weak to fire. Rain will weaken fire moves enough that they are effectively resisted by types like water grass or water ice. This will make Pokemon like Ludicolo or Cloyster harder to take down with errant fire moves if the player insists on using them anyway. When it is raining, the moves Hurricane and Thunder will bypass accuracy checks. When I use the phrase bypass accuracy checks, the key information to remember is that these moves will hit even through accuracy drops or evasion boosts. These are very highly damaging moves with a massive 30% chance to confuse or paralyze respectively. Strong as they are, Thunder and Hurricane will be double-edged swords for the gym leader. The gym leader's water types will mostly be weak to electricity and will need to rely on secondary typings or abilities to minimize the damage from Thunder. On the other hand, Thunder is a large threat to the player if they are using their own water types to take advantage of the rain. Both the gym leader and player can opt to slot in a Pokemon with the grass, ground, or dragon typing to try to reduce or negate damage from Thunder. However, those types on their own won't be enough to also reduce Hurricane's flying type damage. Obviously, the player will have more choice than the gym leader for counteracting Thunder and Hurricane, but that is fine because we want the player to interact with the information and make good decisions. When it is raining, or when the current weather obstructs sunlight, moves that rely on sunlight deal less damage or apply less healing. Solar Beam and Solar Blade are examples of moves that deal less damage. Synthesis, Morning Sun, and Moonlight are examples of moves that heal less. By the way, Moonlight is reflected sunlight, so yes, it does make sense. Let's not get into the accuracy of Moonlight's healing amount. Given this information, the gym leader and player should rely on different forms of healing that work with weather, like Rain Dish ability, or methods unaffected by weather, like the moves Giga Drain or Leech Seed. The player has an option of setting Sun to increase the efficiency of sunlight-based moves to counteract rain temporarily. That covers the most relevant effects of rain. We'll get to abilities later. Now is the section where we go over things we would put on teams for each section of the game for a player to combat. Remember, we are discussing concepts and examples today, not exact numbers and breakpoints. We are discussing at the level of, do you want cheese or tomatoes on the burger? Not, should ketchup for the fries next to the burger have 6 grams of celery salt or 3 grams of sea salt? Thanks. The gym leader's early game teams aren't anything notable. The first 2 badges are usually 2 Pokemon teams of low-level Pokemon with incomplete movesets because the player is still getting their bearings. Sometimes the gym leader's final Pokemon is the only one knowing a stab move. For the early water gyms, a team like Corphish and Ducklet for the first badge is fine. Then something like a Poliwag and a Lombre for the second badge. They'll learn about how secondary types like Flying and Grass can neutralize water's weakness to grass. In the case of Ducklet, how the secondary can make an electric weakness even worse. By badges 3 and 4, the player's starter should have evolved once, and they should probably have 1 or 2 other teammates that can do things. Given that experience share is on by default in all recent Pokemon games, the filler Pokemon should be a usable level as well. The gym leader will still only use 3 or 4 Pokemon at this point, but they can finally have all 4 move slots filled and use 1 or 2 evolved Pokemon. We'll want a weak Swift Swimmer like Finneon or Goldeen to show off how Rain can power them up. They'd be out first, but a little lower level than the rest of the team to account for the doubled speed from Swift Swim and the higher water damage dealt in Rain. Finneon and Goldeen have access to Gust and Peck respectively, so the weak flying move can be a little something to hurt grass type. Next, we can add Chinchou or Wooper to the lineup to demonstrate how to address weaknesses. Chinchou can absorb electric moves with Volt Absorb, and Wooper is immune to electricity due to its partial ground typing. Wooper has Mudshot, Mist, and Yawn to help the gym leader's team, whereas Chinchou can help with electric coverage, Confused Ray, or Thunder Wave. Finally, the gym leader's last Pokemon can be something like Seal, Alomomola, or Palpitoad. Their purpose is to deal rain-boosted damage, heal with rest, and then allow their hydration ability to cure them of sleep while it is raining. These Pokemon will try to have a battle of attrition, where they try to use rest to stall long enough to KO you. The Badge 4 battle uses higher base power moves. Badges 5 and 6 are the points in the games where the player historically gets access to Surf and Strength, the point in the game where you are earning the ability to explore many more areas and are granted easier access to moves with base power greater than 60. Since you are gaining exploration ability in more optional areas, you should have access to more Pokemon variety. Even though gym leaders likely still don't use held items aside from a berry here and there, the player should have a few items to use and access to a variety of TMs. The gym teams at this point can have 4 to 5 Pokemon. It really depends on the Pokemon used. If we use Pokemon with relatively high base stats or high base stat totals, then we need to compensate to keep things fair for the assessment. For this point in the game, we have plenty of appropriate Swift Swimmers. We can allow the Finneon or Goldeen from earlier to evolve since the level of the team would be in the early 30s. We can also swap them out for different Swift Swimmers like Floatzel, Relicanth, Barraskewda, or Mantine. Our options for electric resists and immunities would also be evolved at this point, so Quagsire and Lantern are available. Seismitoad is only available at level 36, so this might be limited to Badge 6 and above, but not Badge 5. There's honestly so many options when we aren't limited by a regional dex. Let's have Lumineon, Relicanth, Lantern, and Ludicolo to round out the squad. I completely forgot to mention this, but if Flip Turn is available, this is a good point where I'd be comfortable allowing them to start spamming that. Badges 7 and 8 are the tail end of the story. Historically, this is the part where the great evil or crisis of the region is resolved, and occasionally the player is given a box legendary or something broken. Lately, Pokemon games have actually chilled out and showed some restraint when it comes to letting you use a box legendary to sweep the last two gyms, Elite Four and Champion. The level at this point tends to be from level 40 to level 45 for these last two gyms. At this point, most water types the gym leaders would realistically be using are fully evolved and should have access to most of their movesets and a few good TMs for coverage. The team should have 5 to 6 Pokemon, especially as the final gyms. The team around this time can finally drop the weaker Swift Swimmers and slot in a Swift Swim Kingdra. Since Kingdra is really good, it's going to be the anchor of the team. Lantern returns to abuse Thunder and negate electric moves. I really wanted a water flying type with access to Hurricane. Luckily there's a TM for Hurricane just like Thunder. A mixed Gyarados would be an excellent addition to the team. Intimidate support, Stab Waterfall, and Stab Hurricane to compensate for the lower special attack stat would allow it to be a formidable teammate. We can alternatively swap in Mantine or Swanna as the Hurricane abuser for this part of the game, and we can save Gyarados for later. Tentacruel can be slotted in to punish health-stealing moves with Liquid Ooze ability and help threaten grass types for the team. It also has the benefit of threatening fairies to help Kingdra. Maybe throw a Rain Dish Ludicolo in there too as an option. The team is pretty weak to freeze dry and could definitely benefit from something that isn't weak to freeze dry like Cloyster or even thick fat Dugong. We've displayed the strengths and weaknesses of water types, how to try to build to cover those weaknesses, and how to abuse their strength and rain. We've intentionally left openings so that the player has reasonable counterplay and ways to approach this gym at different stages of the game. The species, again, are conceptual examples. Anything can go there for the sparring session with the gym leader. Given the abundance of water types, these teams can easily have members swapped out for something that does the same thing conceptually, but at a more appropriate power level. Finally, we get to the part where balance doesn't really matter, the post-game teams. This is the part of the game after the main story where the player has free reign and the world is completely open. We can pub stomp the player all we want because these are optional fights that don't block the player from any content other than some lines of dialogue, extra cash, and duplicates of TMs or something. We can certainly have rewards, just not exclusive rewards. And I wouldn't lock important things like choice items behind these fights or make them the only way to get certain TMs. Doing something like gifting the player 3 to 5 free duplicates of otherwise expensive or rare TMs would be fair. I'd personally rather farm Flip Turn and Waterfall TMs from a hard gym rematch than have to rely on doing something like raids with randoms. For these post-game rematches, the gym leaders don't have to use their officially sanctioned, pre-approved teams from their gym when facing you. These would be full 6 Pokemon teams, and now we can use high BST Pokemon, level 60 and higher if we want. Hidden abilities and all items are now firmly on the table as options too. We could take a balanced approach with the team like Ludicolo, Gyarados, Tentacruel, Quagsire, Lantern, and Kingdra. At this point, you get the gist of what this team does. The difference is that we can slot on hidden abilities if we want. Alternatively, we can sacrifice our defenses and go aggressive with a team of Palafin, Rotom, Golisopod, Seismitoad, Kingdra, and Basculegion. This team is built in such a way that the gym leader can flip turn aggressively to change Palafin into its hero form. Rotom Wash is there to burn things, click Hydro Pump or Thunder for damage, or Volt Switch out. Golisopod's first impression will be nice for threatening grass types, and its other moves hit hard, especially in the rain. Emergency Exit is not the best ability, but will help the gym leader AI actually switch out. Seismitoad is here so that we aren't 100% rolled by opposing electric moves, especially Thunder. Kingdra is here for Swift Swim shenanigans. And finally, Swift Swim Basculegion will be an excellent anchor with Last Respect spam. This team generally wants to brute force the enemy with heavy hitters. The team is happy to trade out Pokemon because every fainted teammate is going to power up Basculegion's Last Respects. Please keep in mind that this is a team that has been baby-proofed to be useful by the game's somewhat simple AI. I would not recommend this team for a skilled human to use against another skilled human in competitive play. Seriously, don't do it. Wow, this took so much longer than I expected to go over. We didn't even have time to go over the double battle gym pairings for water. It was at least worth it to set the ground rules and create a template for this series. provided both you, the people, are interested, and I, the creator, still will be interested. The early and mid-game teams just aren't as fun to think about since they don't have as many options. If I were to do the other gyms, I think I'd skip straight to their 7 and 8 badge teams, and then go on to their rematch and double battles. That way we'd have time to cover it all in one video, and it wouldn't need to be cut in half like this one. By the time that this one comes out, I'll be editing part 2 of this video, which is already part 2 of the gym leader video. I'll be explaining AI-friendly team concepts for the gym leader pairings, like a battle with the water and electric gym leaders under permanent electric terrain and rain, or battling the water and grass gym leaders with permanent rain and grassy terrain. Expect more discussions like that in the short term. I've personally been having a lot of fun with this, and remember, the goal is to teach players, not gatekeep them. It's going to be a fun experience. Thanks for watching, and I will see you some other time. Bye.